Tonight, in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television, we take you to Fako Division in the southwest region, where local inhabitants would not only be describing the horror and hardship that they went through in 2017, they say that the awaited end-of-year speech by the President of the Republic would mark a significant turning point in the socio-political crisis that has been rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. And in this newscast as well, the President of the Republic, in his own words, exactly 1 year ago, said that peaceful dialogue is the only way out of the current crisis rocking the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. What measures have the government been able to put in place for things to return to normal in the northwest and southwest regions of Cameroon? That's going to be a topic of discussion in the second part of this newscast. Stay with us. We shall be right back. Good evening to you, ladies and gentlemen. We thank you for joining us in this edition of the Primetime Newscast on Equinoxe Television. It's been at the center of debate and statements as well across social media. The presidential offer to students of universities across the national territory. Two government ministers, as we speak, are meeting with the press to throw more light on the Paul Biya higher education vision model laptops offered to university students in Cameroon. The outing of the Minister of Higher Education and that of Communication is coming after several Cameroonians took on social media to denounce the quality and capacity of the presidential offer. Ministers Jacques Famindongo and Issa Shiruma Bakari are going to be telling journalists the specificities of the laptops whose first consignment was already distributed to students of the University of Yaoundé 1 and 2, that was in the nation's capital, Yaoundé. The second consignment is expected to arrive the 5th of January 2018. The Minister of Communication and that of Higher Education are currently meeting with media men and women in the nation's capital. We, of course, will be telling you more in our subsequent newscast. Now, water crisis hits Manju. That is a locality in the Mongo Division, littoral region of Cameroon. For several weeks now, local inhabitants have to cover distances to get the precious liquid. But you wouldn't believe that Manju is endowed with water catchment areas, as innocent as it tells us in the following report.
Blessed with several water catchment areas, the population of Manju in the Mongo division of the littoral region are still passing through recurrent water crises.
Les populations de Manju souffrent tellement.
They travel long distances and tour the bushes in search of the precious liquids.
Pourquoi c'est Manju qui produit de l'eau?
It is even sold to them at high cost, like elsewhere, with no water. Taps in Manju run dry and become decorative pillars.
Qui ne coule pas.
What pains them most is that they are naturally endowed with water but cannot be proud.
Et nous sommes en manque d'eau.
Complaints arise that the inhabitants of Manju are deprived from potable water, while this resource of theirs is deviated to serve the towns of Lum, Njombe, Penja, Mbanga, Dimbombari and many others.
Puiser l'eau de la Dibombe, qu'on met toutes choses dedans.
They rather fetch contaminated water from doubtful sources for domestic uses with ramifications usually registered.
Nos enfants souffrent de puiser l'eau de la source qui donne les maladies de gauche à droite.
A thing which the population of Njombe describe as expropriation of their water catchment areas. Expectation is that authorities should have compassion and enable them enjoy what they have.
Local authorities as well as some youths in the Mongo division, precisely in the locality of Njombe, are now fighting against random waste disposal. The presence of garbage heaps has been blamed on the incivility on the part of the entire population. Details once again with Innocent Aze.
The city of Njombe was gradually being transformed into a garbage dump site. Heaps of rubbish, pints at every corridor of the town, and markets were equally not collected by the garbage collection company, Isakam. It got decayed and threatened the health of inhabitants.
Il y a beaucoup de moustiques.
We begin from Njombe, say dirty don't too much for market, for quarter, for inside doctor self, we see dirty way too much. Nous avons les insectes qui viennent suivre la poubelle et puis ça nous met mal à l'aise.
Youth of Njombe, who voluntarily organized a clean-up campaign to correct the wrongs of inhabitants, blame the incivility of the population of Njombe for the insanitary states of the town and their ill health.
For population, they are not décivilisés.
Their exemplary action to keep the city of Njombe clean was hailed by many. In a gathering, the divisional officer urged each and every inhabitant to be conscious and self-disciplined by not disposing dirt anywhere with the intention garbage collectors would pick them up. After the clean-up and sensitization campaign, the population is expected to keep Njombe clean and live in a natural and healthy environment by dumping garbage in trash cans accordingly to facilitate works of garbage collectors.
We now talk about a special report of the day, the expectations of inhabitants in Fako division of the Southwest region as far as the end-of-year speech of the President of the Republic of Cameroon is concerned. But before we talk about that, Limbe residents are still recovering from the effect of yesterday's systematic control conducted by forces of law and order. It unfolded in the night. Reports from My 4 and other surrounding neighborhoods indicate that even houses were invaded and those without national identity cards were apprehended. We, of course, will be giving you details in our subsequent editions. Now, few hours to the end-of-year speech of the President of the Republic, Anglophone Cameroonians are reflecting on police brutality, killings and chaos that characterize the persisting Anglophone crisis throughout the year 2017. Their hope is for the current state of affairs to change for the better and give way for a meaningful dialogue. Derek Jato, a correspondent in the Southwest region, spoke with some residents in Fakwa and compiled the following report.
As the nation paused for President Paul Biya's speech come December 31st, 2017, some voices of the Southwest region say they are bleeding at heart.
Even those who have not expressed their acrimony are bleeding at heart. They want to see a different Cameroon.
And that the Anglophone crisis has not only brought untold hardship, but has taken the lives of their loved ones.
Many people, they are dead. A lot of things are happening. But in the 1st of December, we pray that President Pobia should speak a good thing in this country.
To others, the end result of whatsoever President Paul Biya will say should be able to bring back the peace that has been absent in the Northwest and Southwest regions for over 1 year now.
And he remains the head of state of Cameroonians. We really advise him that Cameroonians need to smile again and rebuild their confidence again. And I will strongly advise that he should assure Cameroonians that dialogue will be put on the table and this matter will be resolved for the sake of peace and the happiness of Cameroon.
And as President Paul Biya prepares to address the nation, the Southwest people are reminding him that there is economic stagnation.
So they say economic stagnation, so many enterprises are crying.
We in seriously hit because they have blocked and there were no more ships coming from neighboring countries which the economy of
and that they are tired of words and empty endless promises. To them, Mr. President should be able to tell them what he has done or what he is currently doing, not what he will do.
Say politicians don't like word to put to the masses. They have millions of words. Action is better. Better tell Cameroon that this is what I've done. This is what I'm doing tomorrow, and we start seeing it implemented.
Governance is moving from bad to worse.
I was in Bamenda in 1983 when the head of state visited. By then he was bubbling with youthful exuberance. He was the harbinger of hope. We cheered him up in Bamenda, February 1983, I was in phone call. We cheered him up when he said no more chasing of files. And we believe him. More than 35 years thereafter, people are chasing files more than ever before.
And their towns are still with the old pens of the colonial masters.
Look like Chikodi is a colonial town. It has remained from when the colonial masters left till to date.
Some Southwest people sees federalism as the way out of the Anglophone crisis.
And the greatest option, if you were to vote the people's mind, in 10 federal states, 10 autonomous states.
That word is federalism. That we have elected governors, we have constituent assemblies, that takes care of the basic daily lives of the people. It is disheartening 50 years after the independence of Southern Cameroon and the independence of La République de Cameroon that people should be running to Yaoundé to change files.
And politicians expect President Paul Biya to make pronouncements.
In 2018, being an election here, we have the Manju statement concerning the national security to take place from 2018.
And that President Paul Biya should make Cameroon ready for the 2019 African Cup of Nations in 2018.
I expect the head of state, I think, to say something on the preparations that our country is making towards hosting the 2019 AFCON, because I think the better time for serious instructions to be dished out, I think, is now.
The rendezvous, therefore, is taken for December 31st, 2017.
And what is going to be an assessment of the management of the current socio-political crisis and the way forward? Our guest tonight will be talking about in the second part of this newscast. The news out of Cameroon. Former football star George Weah has won the presidential election in Liberia. The former Ballon d'Or winner beat his opponent Joseph Boakai in the second round of the country's presidential elections. Manju and Gabriel tells us more in the following report.
61.5% for the CDC. And 38.5% for the Unity Party.
George Weah, also known as Mr. George, finally attains his political dreams after being patient for several years. Before moving into politics, he was popularly known in the sports domain, where he played for top European club sides, Paris Saint-Germain in France, AC Milan in Italy, and Chelsea of England, just to name these few. During his football era, thanks to his magnificent form on the pitch, in 1995, he earned the Ballon d'Or award and became the first African to grab the trophy till date. 10 years after he left the pitch, he decided to try in politics. In 2005, he was one of the front runners in the first round presidential elections in Liberia, which he finally lost to Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, first lady to be voted as an African president during the second runoff. In 2011, Mr. George was beaten in the position of Liberia's vice president by Joseph Boakai. With all the disappointments, George Weah never gave up as he traveled to the United States of America, where he obtained a diploma in management. His never-say-die attitude saw him picking up his first mandate to become a senator in 2014. Even though he wasn't around when Liberia was engaged in a civil war between 1989 and 2003 that saw several of his citizens lost their lives, the love that George Weah got from the Liberians enabled him beat the same Joseph Boakai in Liberia's presidential runoff Thursday. The question on everyone's mouth is whether the same success Mr. George got on the pitch will be transferred as he becomes Liberia's president.
And that brings us to the end of this first segment of the news. Time for us to meet our guest for tonight. Stay with us. Tonight we are going to be evaluating happenings in Cameroon, socio, political and economic happenings in Cameroon throughout the year 2017, and our guest is a politician and a supporter of the CRM of Professor Maurice Kamto. Ms. Michelle Ndoki, thank you for joining us tonight on Talking Point.
Thank you for inviting me.
The head of state will deliver his end of year speech on the 31st of December, just in few hours from now. It will be the second time that is addressing the entire nation since the Anglophone crisis started. Remember, he actually spoke to Cameroonians last year. That was at the end of 2016. How would you describe the just ended year, or the year that's just about to end?
I was fortunate to be invited last year on the 31st of December 2016 to commend the speech. So I had to pay very close attention to what was being said at the time. And at the time, our view at CRM was already that the tone and the approach to this crisis was not the best one. And that the tone of rigor and talking about order and actually emphasizing on who has authority was the tone used. We did suspect and thought at the time that the year 2017 would not be an easy one, because we didn't see that approach yielding results in terms of building the dialogue that we were all looking forward to see happening. Unfortunately, we've had a very tough year. I think those of us who can sit and watch television and discuss as we are doing are really privileged if we look at what is happening in Cameroon at the moment. And we would like to say how much we feel for those who have lost their lives, who have lost health, who have lost someone, a close parent or so during the year. And we mean by that all the Cameroonians without distinction. But at the same time, we need to look forward and focus on the future and tell those who are still there what we are going to do, how we are going to rebuild this nation. I think this is what we should take to.
Rebuilding the nation is a huge challenge. You've talked about the declarations of the head of state on the 31st of December 2016. His tone was harsh. He was firm in his statements. Did it actually set the pace for happenings in Cameroon in 2017?
That's a difficult question. Of course, it did not work. I think the current president of the republic does not want war in the country. I think as every Cameroonian, he wants peace and he wants Cameroonians to live in harmony. Now, we differ, and he happens to differ from the people as to what are the right means to get to that result. The reality of the country at the moment is that we are not happy as a people with how the current government is managing the country's affairs. And we think, yes, we all agreed there needs to be dialogue. You know, everywhere you will have the same conclusion. Even after war, what ends war is the start of true dialogue. The issue is who is starting the dialogue and who is listening first, because sometimes you think dialogue is when you talk, but actually it is when you listen. And we do believe 2017 has shown to our government that they need to start listening. It's not about them talking. This is a republic, we are in democracy, and the people have the last say, and that is what is being expressed at the moment.
Before we talk about dialogue, you've talked about the president who is preaching peace and wants peace. But paradoxically, on the ground, we have many Anglophone Cameroonians living the Manju division of the South was fleeing to neighboring Nigeria because they are not feeling they are not feeling safe in their localities. They don't feel secured. How do you explain that?
I said before, we explained that by a different perspective on how a crisis should be approached. I think everybody has understood that we are not happy with the current situation, and Cameroonians have expressed that unhappiness in very, very different way, and sometimes in a violent way. Unfortunately, on the part of the government, what we've seen coming back is the same way of addressing the issues that are put forward to them. That is firm, rigorous, harsh, violence. Violence and violence. And of course, violence will not yield peace. You cannot send the army to the people and expect that this will bring you back peace. So where we are now is we need to all understand that the most important thing is, what do we think about this country? Do we love this country? And I think from every part, every village, every town of Cameroon, you will find people that love their country, what we inherited from our father. And that is what is the most important, and that is what we should focus on. You've talked about insecurity in the Manju division. As has been said before, this goes for Ndian division, this goes for Fako division, as you mentioned just a few minutes ago. This goes for the far north, for the north, for Adamawa, for the East Province, and we've heard about, I've received news about what is happening in KOC, that is the South region.
Of course.
All over Cameroon.
Apart from the situation of insecurity that we see in the far north, the east region of Cameroon, the case of the two Anglophone regions is quite particular because we've never had a case where Cameroonians are actually refugees in another country like we have now. Many of them, we are talking about thousands, and the United Nations is talking about it.
At least 7,000.
Very preoccupying situation.
It is very preoccupying, and we do believe this is something that should be addressed as a matter of urgency. Again, it raises the question to all of us. It's not only to some, to the government or to the secessionists, as they call them.
Even politicians as well.
Our politicians. It raises the question about what should be done and what every single Cameroonian should do to make sure that the crisis is addressed and we get back to a peaceful and harmonious country.
Now, Mrs. Mishandoki, these were the words of the President of the Republic in December 2016. He said that lasting solutions to the Anglophone crisis can only be through peaceful dialogue.
Yes.
Peaceful dialogue. We've had a lot of cases where government officials have been to the Anglophone regions of Cameroon to talk to the population. As they indicated, they said they were talking to the population. The Prime Minister, head of government, has actually made a series of visits to the Anglophone regions to talk to the population as well. They have equally gone to the diaspora to talk to the diaspora. We've seen recommendations from the Commonwealth of Nations that the Secretary General was in Cameroon just a few days ago. The United Nations Secretary General was equally in Cameroon. We have international organizations, Amnesty International, the International Crisis Group, that have talked about dialogue. But where is the problem? How should a dialogue be?
As a Cameroonian, I would say that the problem is, what do you do with what you've heard? I mean, yes, people from the government have gone to the southwest and to the northwest to listen and to get the request and recommendation on the way forward. What has been done with those recommendations? For example, clearly they've said not just one time that all the people that have been arrested should be released. That would be a good gesture of peace. And at the point of time in the year, we got the impression that the current President of the Republic was ready to grant that request. But some of the people have been released, some have not been released, and we are unclear what is the rationale between the choice in the two categories. How do you fall in one category? How do you fall in another? And we hear now that some other people are being arrested. So of course, when, yes, you listen to people, you talk to people, but if you keep the same view, that is your approach to the situation, when people are telling you that the situation is not it's no more under your own control, we are all owning the situation, and we are all accountable for getting the result that we're looking for. Then you start seeing why you're not moving forward.
Internet shutdown.
Internet
shutdown. Very unstable in Anglophone regions now.
I would not even be as nice as saying it's unstable. It's not unstable. It is not working, and that we know. And this is not something easy to understand, because the first time they said they will stop internet, and then they put it back because they were asked for a gesture of goodwill. Now, it's not been officially announced, but we do know, those of us who live in Southwest and Northwest, know that internet is not working. Yes, so I can talk about it and I can testify and witness that it is not working. Why? we know that there are investment being made on what we expected to become our own Silicon Valley. What is happening with this project, and what is happening with these families and the revenues that we were to get from there? Globally, the country is not in a pleasant situation, that we know, and we need to start accessing the solutions. We need to start seeing solutions coming from the government instead of only call for dialogue.
Thank you so much, Ms. Michelle Ndoki, for joining us tonight on Talking Point. We hope to have you some other time again.
Thank you for your invitation.
And a Happy New Year to you. To our televiewers, it was equally a pleasure having you with us in this edition of the news. Wishing you a blessed stay in the company of our programs. Until we meet again, goodbye.